We all know the story, or think we do. King David, Bathsheba. That moment on the roof.
Right. It's one of those foundational stories.
But have you ever thought maybe there's more going on? Something beneath the surface?
Definitely. These narratives often have layers we miss on a quick read.
So today we're doing a deep dive. We've got some interesting texts, different perspectives on David and Bathsheba's connection.
And the idea isn't just to retell the story.
No, exactly. We want to pull out some key insights, maybe lessons that still resonate today, going beyond just the basic plot points.
It's amazing how digging into the details can really open up a familiar story. We often just focus on the scandal, the big dramatic moments.
Yeah, but there's a lot more there. Human stuff.
Agreed. So where do we start the beginning of this particular thread?
Let's go right to that scene. David, palace roof, evening. He sees Bathsheba bathing.
2 Samuel 11, right?
Yeah, verse 2 and 3. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful.
It's such a visually charged moment in the text.
It really is. And the analysis we're looking at kind of poses the question, what drove David? This guy described as, a man after God's own heart.
Right. How does someone like that cross such a clear moral line?
What does the text suggest?
Well, this perspective frames it less as just a personal, isolated failure and more as a really powerful warning.
A warning about what?
About temptation itself.
Yeah.
About how unchecked desires can take hold even in someone with a strong spiritual foundation.
So David's story becomes sort of a case study in vulnerability.
Exactly. A stark reminder that, nobody's entirely immune. It highlights this constant human struggle.
It does make you think, how does this ancient story speak to temptations we face? Obviously different circumstances, but that core struggle.
The struggle with desire, with crossing boundaries we know we shouldn't. Yeah, it feels very modern in a way.
So how can David's experience help us understand our own weak spots, maybe?
Well, one angle the text hints at is how power, maybe isolation too, can play a role. David's on the palace roof, kind of above it all.
Right, he has the power to act on impulse.
Precisely. It raises questions about accountability, especially for those in authority. When the usual checks aren't there, even good intentions can falter.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit. What about Bathsheba? Often, she feels like a secondary character, almost just there to trigger David's actions.
That's a common reading, yeah.
But the text we're looking at says something interesting. Her silence speaks volumes. What's that getting at?
It's inviting us to look deeper, basically. To question if simply labeling her a passive victim tells the whole story.
So, challenging that simple interpretation.
Yes. It asks, could her story also be one of maybe resilience, or even redemption later on? Her voice isn't loud at the start, but her presence certainly grows.
And the text connects her to Proverbs 31, the wife of noble character.
Yeah, specifically because she's Solomon's mother. That's a fascinating link.
It really reframes things, doesn't it? Suggests a significance far beyond that initial tragic encounter.
It absolutely does. It makes you consider what we miss when we only read the explicit words on the page. What do the silences imply? What does the long arc of her life suggest?
Her later influence seems undeniable when you look at it that way.
Right. It suggests maybe a more complex figure than the initial verses might lead you to believe.
Okay, so then the consequences. The text moves into the fallout from David's actions. And it wasn't minor.
Not at all. Loss, grief, divine judgment, it's all there.
And that confrontation with Nathan the prophet, wow.
Yeah, 2 Samuel 12. Then Nathan said to David, "You are the man." Just incredibly direct.
He lays it all out. God's perspective on what David did.
It's a pivotal moment, but what's crucial according to this analysis is what comes after the confrontation.
What is?
The emphasis on repentance, sincere repentance, and the availability of God's mercy even then.
So despite how bad the sin was.
Despite the severity, yes. The text highlights that forgiveness is possible. It's not automatic. It requires genuine remorse, a turning back.
But the door isn't completely shut.
Exactly. It's a powerful message about second chances, about restoration being possible even after major failings.
That resonates, I think. The idea that you're not defined forever by your worst moments if you genuinely seek forgiveness.
It speaks to that deep human need for reconciliation, doesn't it? And the potential for growth. Even out of really difficult, self-inflicted situations, it offers hope.
But the story, or rather their story, doesn't stop with the immediate consequences.
No, it keeps unfolding.
And the text brings us to Bathsheba later on, as the mother of King Solomon.
Solomon, yeah. known as, the wisest man in history, according to tradition.
How does the source material see this part of her life, this outcome?
It presents it as a pretty remarkable shift in her legacy. What started in scandal
Right, under this dark cloud.
transforms into a position of incredible influence. She's the mother of the king, central to Israel's future, central to God's ongoing plan in the narrative.
It's kind of amazing, really, how something so positive could emerge from such a, well, disastrous beginning.
It's a prime example of how unexpected, even redemptive, outcomes can arise from really messy, difficult situations.
And there's that scene near the end of David's life where he explicitly confirms Solomon's succession to Bathsheba.
Yes, 1 Kings 1. He makes that oath directly to her.
Solomon, your son, shall be king after me.
It really underlines her importance, doesn't it? She's not just a footnote in David's past. She's actively involved in shaping the kingdom's future.
It definitely challenges seeing her as just a passive figure. She has agency, especially by this point. Queen mother, queen maker almost.
A much more dynamic role than often credited.
Okay, so let's try and pull these threads together. What are the main life lessons the text suggests we can take away for today?
Well, a few key things stand out in the analysis. First, that vulnerability to temptation, it's universal. Even the strongest, seemingly most devout people aren't immune.
A humbling reminder.
Definitely. Second, the power of genuine repentance. It doesn't erase the consequences necessarily, but it opens the path to grace, to forgiveness, to rewriting the narrative in a way.
Okay, I've done third.
That God, within this narrative framework, uses flawed people, deeply flawed sometimes. Their mistakes are part of the story, but not the end of the story. They can still play a part in a larger purpose.
So it comes back to that question the text asks you, the listener. How can these ancient lessons apply to your life now?
Right. It's meant to provoke personal reflection. How do these themes, temptation, failure, repentance, unexpected grace, redemption, how did they play out in our own experiences?
Because the core human struggles, they don't seem to change much, do they?
Not fundamentally, no. The details change, the context changes, but the heart of it feels remarkably consistent across time.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it feels clear that David and Bathsheba's story is, well, it's much more than just a scandal.
Oh, much more. It's a really complex tapestry showing human weakness, yes, but also divine mercy, resilience, and the potential for redemption.
A powerful reflection on being human.
Absolutely. Which leaves us with maybe one final thought for you to mull over.
Go on.
How might truly understanding the complexities of their intertwined story, the sin, the consequences, and the eventual redemption through Solomon, how might that change the way you view your own journey, your own failings, and your own potential for growth, and maybe even unexpected grace?
That's definitely something to think about. It's a story that keeps offering new perspectives.
It really does. It invites that ongoing contemplation.